Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So as you guys know, I've been involved in a long distance relationship with a girl in Taiwan. She actually comes from Vietnam. We just had another beautiful conversation this morning, and it dawned on me why I can have such good chemistry with somebody so far away, but I can't do it back home. I mean, cultural differences don't help, but there's something else going on. You see, when I have a text with her and she sends me a text, I don't feel pressured to respond right away, right? I can sit on it, I can think about it, I can do other things. Sometimes, but I seldom do this, but sometimes I can even confide with somebody else, right? Can't do that in a face to face conversation. And I find I was just reviewing some of my previous conversations with her, and it dawned on me that none of these could have happened in real life. There's no way I can think about all the things that I wanted to say if they were happening in real time. And that's just tragic, in my opinion. If I could only imagine how my life would look like if all of the text messages I ever sent, I could come up with in real time. In real time. Now, this quirk of mine extends beyond just my romantic life, obviously. When I look at all of the work-related emails and text messages that I've sent, oh my god, all of those beautiful things I cannot think of in real time when I'm sitting across the table from somebody, right? Or I recently bought a car, right? If the negotiating of buying that car were happening at a text message, I think I could have handled things a lot better. And I used to. I don't know if my work ever caught on that I was cheating in this way, but when we were working remotely, I often disconnected my internet and pretended that I had connectivity problems because I wanted to buy myself a couple of minutes to think over something. I don't know if my work ever caught on to this. I was working at another school in Seattle, Washington. Obviously, we went back to the office. I couldn't play that game anymore. And I probably showed my true colors when I couldn't play that game anymore, right? So I don't know if my work ever figured out that, hey, my internet at home didn't really suck as bad as I was portraying, right? But obviously, use that only as a last resort, right? For one thing, you don't want your internet to be disconnecting all the time. It's just unprofessional, right? But I often used it as a nuclear weapon when I needed it. Now, I'm a Lego artist, and Lego Ideas has become really picky about what they will and won't accept, right? So, for example, they don't take anything that even tangentially is connected to politics, religion, conflict, and I mean tangentially. If you do a Lego build of a historical art piece, right, abstract art, and that art piece had some connection to historical conflict, oh, they won't take it, right? Or if a famous building was tangentially related to religion, right? So a cathedral of some sort, they're not going to do that, right? Or even a building that was inspired by religion, right? And or you submit something that they will accept, but your photos are kind of off a little bit, and I mean they're really picky to the point that I don't even know what they want because they don't want your photos to be grainy and not show detail, but at the same time, your main photo has to show the entire build. Now, your entire build could be really big, right? 5,000 pieces. And it's like, gee, what do you want? Like, sometimes I'll literally resubmit 5, 6 times and I can't figure that out. Now, I recently was contacting Lego Ideas after a frustration like that. And it was all done through email, obviously. And I was surprised at how far I was able to bend things. I submitted a couple of things that they were sure that I wasn't allowed to submit. But this was by email. If I had traveled to Denmark to sit face to face with whoever was involved in Lego Ideas, I don't think I could have gotten that far. Nowhere near that. I recently was chatting with a celebrity in Poland, as you guys know. I hate to tell too much because it's still ongoing. Well, actually, it wasn't recent that I started chatting with her. I've chatted with her a few times before, but then last winter I was at my grandmother's funeral, and my grandmother passed away in December last year, but she was born right before Mary Curry passed away. And so it inspired me to ask my grandmother to go talk to Mary Curry, to have Mary Curry set me up on a blind date with one of her descendants. Now, at the funeral, as I was saying this, obviously the funeral happened in person. I didn't dress up the story very well, and my dad was so upset. He thought I was joking. He said funerals are not a place for jokes like that. He was upset. Funny thing is that 8 months later, now that the Ask has turned so well, it's become almost legendary. He claims he doesn't remember being upset anymore. I got home and I've known this Polish celebrity for a few years now. We've been chatting on. She is actually one of my Facebook friends. And long story short, our conversation hit a higher gear. And once again, none of those conversations. I'm actually nervous about one day visiting her because I won't be able to have such beautiful conversation when it's happening in real time. And I screw up all of my real-time interactions. And long story short, if I could travel back in time and redo a bunch of my real-time, just the other day, I was at a grocery store and I had a serious complaint with how the store security was attempting to kick out one of the other guests there. And I told the security guard, gee, I don't think this is such a big deal. And he got pretty irate about that. And I had to pull myself out of there because I knew I was going to mess up otherwise. I pulled myself out of there. When I got home, I sat on it for 10, 20 minutes and I composed a beautiful email. Unfortunately, the grocery store that I was complaining to this about on their complaint form, they don't have an email address, they have a complaint form on their website. Their complaint form limits you to 600 characters. I'm like, gee, what's the point? Most computers can handle a lot more than 600 characters, right? You could probably send 6 million characters and you probably won't crash anything in the world, right? With technology. Now, you might say they don't have time to read that. Seriously, if I'm asking for feedback because I want to improve, I actually want you to send as much information as possible, right? If it's too long, maybe I'll have to ask you to digest it down. But the last thing I would want is to completely tune out, right? I think the reason that they limit you to 600 characters is it will make your complaint look very stupid, right? Imagine you had a legitimate complaint, right? You slip and fell at the store because they did something, they didn't clean up, right? Or you one of the employees there sexually harassed you, or imagine you had a legitimate complaint like that, right? Those things tend to be very detailed. But if you're limited to 600 characters, you lose a lot of the detail, and you know you get the idea, right? What becomes, the employee, was irate and said this and said that becomes, oh my God, I couldn't get a refund for whatever, right? And it makes it a lot easier to dismiss a complaint, right? It's kind of like customer service theater, right? They can pretend that they're open to customer service, but all of the complaints look really stupid, right? So I sent as much as I could. I told them, this is actually not the whole story. Why don't you call me so we could have more time to talk about this? And then I followed up with a second complaint, complaining about their technical issue, and I said, I don't understand why you limit it to 600 characters. Right? I dressed it up a little bit better than that, but that's because I was not doing it real time. A lot of people don't realize, also, when you watch my YouTube videos, a lot of times it's not the first take, right? This one is the first take, but a lot of times it's not, right? All right. If only I could, if all of the emails, text messages I ever sent, I could handle in real life. I can only imagine where I'd be today. I can only imagine, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.